Good morning, welcome back once again, and please take your seats. Thank you. We have just 2 days more to go, and a couple of items are still open. We have agenda item 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. That means all the resolutions still open. We have agenda item 7.1, the next steps for the ASW working group in particular, still open. And we kept also agenda item 12 open yesterday, IWC in the future. Now, to help you a little bit to organize yourself, my intention is to start, as already indicated yesterday, following the working program with agenda item 14, scientific permits. Then I will continue with safety at sea and other conservation issues. Once we've done these 3 issues, then I will come back to all the open items and taking them in the order we worked with at the beginning. That means I will then first ask the proponents of agenda item 6.1, the corresponding resolutions, if they are ready to present the outcome of their work during the last days. And I'm not intending to go into a long discussion we had at the beginning. Time to express the different views. Of course, I will allow that 1 or 2 maybe out of the drafting group will explain if there are different views. Hopefully, we can find consensus. And if not, it will be up to the proponents to decide whether they wish to have a vote on the resolution or if they wish to have some more time. But more time means then, in my view, at the first place, intersessionally. So, but of course, it will be up to you, up to the proponents to decide how to proceed. But once more, I'm not reopening for a lengthy discussion. The idea is really to close, if ever possible, all open agenda items today. At least in the cases where we have a new document, we have a revised version. And of course, I will also ask after agenda item 16, when it comes to the point, the proponents of the resolutions, we haven't get yet any revised version to explain what's their intention, how to proceed best. I hope that's acceptable for you all, so you know now more or less at what time you should be ready. And therefore, I start now with agenda item 14. And as you know, we have a resolution related to this theme, but under agenda item 14, it's reporting, it's what was done, so we will have not, if possible, conflict with resolution 6.2. So it's just about what was done the last 2 years and to inform and to discuss. So I see the chair of the scientific committee is ready and waiting to get the microphone. So I would like to ask you to introduce agenda item 14 and then 41, new rep A. So please.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning. Agenda item 14, scientific permits. You find a summary of our discussion on these topics on IWC66 17, item 18 on pages from 26 to 29. During the Commission intersessional period, the committee have held 2 expert workshops, review the results of those. One was on the submission of a new special permit proposal, new rep A, in 2015, and one was the final review of JARPAN 2 program, which was called before its real end in 2016. For both, the committee took into consideration Resolution 2014-5 and amended its working methods accordingly. In the first case, the scientific committee didn't meet in time, but the resolution was incorporated in our methods anyway, and you will see in a minute. So item 14.1, new rep A, the expert panel report on the new rep A proposal is given in SC 66A rep 06. It represents a thorough and detailed review. I should note that although the expert panel review occurred before the committee, as I said, we did incorporate Resolution 2014. And later on in the year, this resolution was fully incorporated in Annex B. So the expert panel made a number of recommendations. You find them in tables 1 to 3 in the SC 66A rep 06. And these recommendations are about the work that needed to be done before it could actually consider its review final. The committee thanked the panel for its hard work and extensive report. It noted that conclusions and recommendations of the panel would form an important component of the committee review. Our overall conclusion on the new rep A proposal can be found under item 17.1.5 of the 2015 report. These took into account the panel report, the response of the proponents, and the response of the proponents in the report, 2015 report is item 17.1.3, and a committee review of the proponents' intersessional work. So the work that was carried out between the expert panel and the scientific committee. The committee agreed that in the case of new rep A, the objectives of the special permits research, which are summarized in table 22 of the 2015 report, scientific report, committee report, are directed to improvements in the conservation and management of whales. Thus, issues A and B of the resolution, which I will tell you in a minute exactly what they mean, are tightly related. Therefore, we agreed to combine the scientific committee advice for these issues together. And obviously, note, please, that the review of a large new proposal is complex and technical. It is not possible to avoid, in my summary, some technical issues, although we have tried to simplify things where possible. I reiterate that listening to this summary is not intended to be a substitute for reading the full reports, both from the expert panel and the scientific committee. And in the next part of my intervention, I'll summarize our discussion following the resolution 2014-5. So starting from items A and B of the resolution, these were related to whether the design and implementation of the program, including sample sizes, are reasonable in relation to achieving the program stated research objective, and whether the elements of the research that rely on little obtained data are likely to lead to improvement in conservation and management of whales. The panel views with respect to these items are summarized under 17.1.1 in the scientific committee report. And its recommendations for future work is provided in table 1 of the scientific committee report. In regard to both objective 1 and 2 of the program, the committee agreed, as did the panel, that the program has clearer objectives than JARPA 2, and that Japan had provided further clarification and responses to some of the issues raised in earlier reviews. The committee agreed that additional work needed to be done to evaluate the level of improvement that might be expected either in the statistical catch at age assessment approach, known as SCAA, or in RMP performance by improved precision in biological parameters. It agreed that the current SCAA does not of itself constitute a full specification of the modeling work needed for management procedure testing. The committee agreed, as did the panel, that the ecosystem and multi-species modeling in the proposal are generally a valid approach to the main objective 2 of investigating the ecosystem through modeling studies. For what concerns item C of the resolution, which relates to whether the objectives of the research could be achieved by non-lethal means, or whether there are reasonably equivalent objectives that could be achieved non-lethally. The panel views on this are summarized under item 17.1.1 of the scientific committee report in 2015, and its recommendations for future work are provided in table 1. The committee agreed with the panel that it will not be able to determine whether non-lethal means can be used to achieve certain objectives until the recommended field experiments, laboratory work, and analysis are concluded. The panel had noted that the recommended analysis could be conducted with existing samples and data and non-lethal field effort. For what concerns item D of the resolution, which relates to whether the scale of lethal sampling is reasonable in relation to the program's stated research objective, and non-lethal alternatives are not feasible to either replace or reduce the scale of lethal sampling proposed, the panel views are summarized under item 17.1.1, B, D, and A of the report, 2015 Scientific Committee report, and its recommendations for future work provided in Table 1. On the question of feasibility of non-lethal alternatives to replace or reduce the scale of lethal sampling, the committee noted that the points I just made for under item C are also relevant. The proponents had estimated that required sample size only for the objective of detecting a trend in the age at sexual maturity. So this was done during the annual meeting. The proponents presented simulation to evaluate the statistical power to detect such a change. The committee agreed that the simulations generally followed the approach suggested by the panel, but that not all the recommended parameters have been covered, which would overestimate the power. Consequently, the estimated sample size were likely to be small. Ideally, there should be a management-related or biological-based justification for the effect size. Under item 3 of the resolution, which is relates to such other matters as the scientific committee considers relevant to the program having regard to the decision of the International Court of Justice, including the methodology used to select sample size, a comparison of the target sample size and the actual take, the time frame associated with the program, the program's scientific output, and the degree to which a program coordinates his activity with related research projects. Panel views on these aspects are summarized again under agenda item 1711 of the Scientific Committee report in 2015. And table 1 again show the recommendations for future work. The committee noted that the methodology used to select sample size is addressed under item 17.4.3 in the same Scientific Committee report. It also noted that the new REPA proposal, which is for 12 years, stated that the intention was to evaluate progress after 6 years in order to determine the further time frame required to reach the objectives. The committee agreed that despite the additional information provided by proponents at the meeting, it nevertheless recommended further focused collaboration on those aspects of the new REPA highlighted by the panel report, especially related to the development of ecosystem modeling, prey studies, and evaluation of non-lethal techniques. So the overall conclusion in 2015 from the committee was that despite lack of consensus in part of the committee's responses to the questions which are contained in the Commission resolution, the committee nevertheless agreed that the analysis recommended by the panel and further specified in Annex Q1 of its report, 2015 report, should be completed and that progress should be reviewed again in 2016. And in fact, in 2016, we did review progress made on the 29 recommendations, and we produced a summary table that you can find is table 23 of the 2016 report. Our discussion and recommendations are under item 18.11 of that report, and they focused mostly upon two of the more complex and important recommendations for which two small groups, technical small groups, were established. One was recommendation number 1, and the other was recommendation 26. So recommendation 1 was to evaluate the level of improvement that might be expected either in the SCAA or RMP performance by improving precision in biological parameters using simulation studies, including updated implementation trials. The committee endorsed the two technical recommendations for the proponents to undertake additional analysis. And it also noted that there is an agreed process for proposing any changes to the CLA The committee agreed that a wide set of trial would need to be specified to establish the robustness and potential for improvement performance of a modified CLA. There is currently no set of trial specific to Antarctic minke whales. Recommendation 26 was to provide a thorough power analysis of sample sizes required to detect changes in age at sexual maturity and follow the other recommendations on this item. There was considerable technical discussion of a paper addressing this issue provided by the proponents, as well as additional work was undertaken during the meeting. And the committee agreed that the approach taken by the proponents was what had been intended by the committee and the panel. But the results confirmed some of the concern expressed within the technical review group within the technical review group. The committee agreed that the need for proponents agreed on the need for the proponents to apply the revised approach to the full data set, as it was applied only to part of the data set. This year, we finally agreed that the conclusion and recommendation reached in 2015 remain valid, and our focus to review progress made by the proponents and all the recommendations made by the scientific committee is summarized in table 23, which are on page 91 and 99 of our report. Do you want me to stop here, or should I go on with 14.2?
Thank you. No, I think we stop here. And I would like to open the floor for remarks, questions, or comments. I see none. Then, now I see Australia and then Japan, New Zealand. So, in order, Australia, please.
Thank you, Chair. Australia and New Zealand have introduced a resolution to facilitate the Commission's review on special permit programs, and if accepted, that process can only begin after this meeting of the Commission. This then leaves us for this meeting to deal with the advice from the Scientific Committee on its reviews over the next 2 years, including its review of New Rep A. We thank Katerina for her excellent summary, and we also thank the Scientific Committee for its work on this. The Scientific Committee has also provided advice on the Annex P procedure, taking into account the terms of reference provided by the Commission in Resolution 2014-5. Again, we thank the Scientific Committee for their diligence in conducting these reviews. Resolution 2014-5 was agreed to strengthen the Scientific Committee's review process. In accordance with the International Court of Justice's findings, it defined the minimum characteristics that a special permit program should have if it is to be considered for the purposes of scientific research. The Court considered that whether a program has those characteristics is to be determined objectively and cannot simply be self-determined by a contracting government. The Scientific Committee has again provided advice on New Rep A in the Some and Others format. However, it is clear that behind these Some and Others statements, there is ample evidence that the New Rep A proposal is not consistent with expectations set out by the Court and embodied in Resolution 2014-5. NUREP-A has by no means demonstrated that it meets the minimum criteria to be considered for the purposes of scientific research. This much is evident from the report of the independent expert panel, which met in Tokyo in February 2015. The members of the expert panel were selected for their scientific expertise and held balanced views about the efficacy of lethal and non-lethal research. The panel concluded that it was not able to determine whether lethal sampling is necessary to achieve NUREP-A's two major objectives, and, importantly, that the proposal did not demonstrate the need for lethal sampling. The panel also recognised that the sample size calculations presented in the NUREP-A proposal were oversimplified. We recall that setting and achieving appropriate sample sizes was a key factor in the court's judgment about JARPA 2. The expert panel made a number of recommendations for further work to be carried out for the proponents to demonstrate the need for lethal sampling and to correctly calculate the required sample sizes. They also considered that a pause of 2 or 3 years to carry out this further work would not be detrimental to achieving the programme's objectives. At the 2015 meeting of the Scientific Committee, a number of analyses were presented by Japanese scientists that they claimed fulfilled the panel's recommendations. To assist the Scientific Committee to evaluate these claims, a specialist subgroup was tasked with evaluating the extent to which the proponents had responded to the panel's recommendations. This subgroup consisted of quantitative experts, including 2 invited participants, and scientists from Australia, Germany, Japan, and Norway. The subgroup concluded by consensus that although there was progress, the panel's recommendations had not been fully implemented. To help the proponents, the subgroup provided specific detail on how the recommendations of the panel could be satisfied. Based on this finding, in 2015, many members of the Scientific Committee upheld the panel's view that Japan had not demonstrated the need for lethal research. After the Scientific Committee meeting in 2014, Australian scientists requested data collected under JARPA and JARPA 2 so they could independently calculate the sample sizes required to meet the objectives. This request was denied by Japan. Japan circulated a letter saying that it had sufficiently completed the recommended further analyses. The letter stated that Japan was satisfied that the objectives could be met and that no changes to sample sizes were necessary. No technical details were provided. Based on this autonomous determination by Japan, special permits were issued under Article 8 for NUREP-A, and whaling took place in the 2015-16 season. This did not give the Commission the opportunity to review the advice of the Scientific Committee and provide any recommendations in accordance with Resolution 2014-5. At the 2016 Scientific Committee meeting, Japanese scientists provided the analyses they had claimed fully responded to the expert panel's recommendations. The Scientific Committee tasked the same specialist subgroup of the previous year, including the Japanese and Norwegian scientists, to examine whether the new analyses had adequately responded to the expert panel's recommendations. The subgroup agreed, again by consensus, that although further progress had been made, not all the recommendations had been fulfilled. In particular, the calculations of sample size were still oversimplified. The lack of access to data from JARPA and JARPA 2 prevented other members of the Scientific Committee from making independent calculations. Based on these findings, many members of the Scientific Committee reiterated that NUREP-A had not demonstrated the need for lethal research. Mr. Chairman, it is only possible to conclude on the basis of these facts that the Commission itself must conclude that NUREP-A has not been demonstrated as fit for the purposes of scientific research and that special permits under Article 8 should not be issued. Thank you.
Thank you, Australia. And before I give Japan the floor, I have New Zealand, the Netherlands, and then an NGO on my list, and then I would like to draw a line for discussion. I just add two more, and that's the end of the list, Argentina and Iceland. So first Japan, New Zealand, the Netherlands, Argentina, Iceland, and then I drew a line. So please, Japan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good morning all. And I also like to take this opportunity to thank the wonderful reception the chair himself hosted last night. Thank you very much for that. We enjoyed very much. And as to the issue of NUREP A, we all know there are differences of opinion. And oftentimes outside the floor of this meeting or outside the scientific committee meeting, things are described as simply black and white or yes or no. However, as we might have sensed from the report from the chair of a scientific committee, there are very extensive technical and scientific discussions happening. And as correctly described by Australian delegation, the report has many places where we have some and other opinions. So there are both sides of scientific and technical opinions, so it's not simple as black and white. And at this opportunity, again, actually, I'd like to thank the scientific committee, the members of expert panel, and members of small technical groups, and of course, Madam Chair herself for handling this task of reviewing our research plan in a very professional, technical, scientific manner. It is important for this organization that to look at this issue based on science or based on the true report or the true contents of the report of the scientific committee. We oftentimes have a different interpretation as to the result, as the some and other expression or description expresses. But it's only natural for any scientific exercise to have a difference of opinion. So I would say the process we are following at the scientific committee is very healthy scientific exchanges. And also, I like to point out that the task of the scientific committee is clearly described by paragraph 30 of the schedule to the International Convention of Regulation of Whaling. The scientific committee shall review and comment the research plan as well as the result of ongoing research activities. And they did review and they did comment very extensively as to the contents and results of our research plan. And for example, I like to draw your attention to the main report of the scientific committee, as again the scientific committee chair described, that the most accurate information is included in the scientific committee. It's highly technical and a lot of words, but still, I just like to try to show you some sense of our scientific committee discussion. For example, in the 2016 scientific committee report, which extensively explained by the chair and also Australian delegation, thank you for them, our scientific committee are engaged in 29 different recommendations as to NUREP A. And pages from 93 to 100 of a scientific committee report in 2016 in detail explain the status of each recommendations to the proponents, in this case Japan. And you can see that some of them, the scientific committee set a timeline of within 3 months or 1 year, 2-year or throughout the process of research plan itself. So clearly, this is an ongoing process of a review and comment. The scientific activities will not give you a yes and answer at one point. This is ongoing process, and that is only natural for any science. And our scientists, and also the scientists from many other countries, have been diligently following the process of reviewing and making a progress year after year. And that needs to be understood clearly by all parties, so that this is not a simple issue of a black and white. And we did decide after, in the winter, Northern Hemisphere winter of 2015, to initiate new REP-A on the basis of our understanding, on the basis of our judgment, that we have responded the recommendations in a satisfactory manner. Recommendations that is not a long-term or ongoing nature. And the result have been already provided or start to be provided to the scientific committee. And we wish that only those results will help us to bridge the differences and make this discussion as scientific as possible. And of course, we always welcome any constructive comments and reviews about this process. Let me make just one more point, that another black and white perception spreading about the result of our ICJ judgment. And some the interest or some report oftentimes say, irrespective of ICJ judgment, Japan started the research, or in violation of ICJ judgment, Japan started, and that's not true either. And the ICJ judgment has almost 300 different paragraphs, and in many places it is clear that the ICJ assumes that there could be a future research activities under Article 8 of ICRW. And paragraph 246 of our judgment actually says that it is to be expected Japan will take account of the reasoning and conclusions contained in this ICJ judgment as it evaluates the possibility of granting any future permits under Article 8 of the Convention. So we responded to this paragraph quite extensively, and the new research plan, new REP-A, in our view, responded to all those reasoning and conclusions. So it is consistent with the ICJ judgment, or it is in accordance with ICJ judgment, not a violation or not despite ICJ judgment. And the ICJ also said that in paragraph 224, the court finds that the use of lethal sampling per se is not unreasonable. The use of lethal sampling per se is not unreasonable in relation to the research objectives of JARPA 2. So they did not deny lethal sampling. So all those information needs to be on the table when we discuss the issue. We know this is a contentious issue, but the facts, law, and science should be the basis for the further discussion on this issue. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Japan. Now New Zealand, please.
Thank you very much, Chair, and good morning. First of all, we would like to thank the Chair of the Scientific Committee for her overview of the work of the Scientific Committee in the intersessional period, and we would like to concur with the comments of Australia. The complexity of today's discussion, as outlined in the overview given by the Chair of the Scientific Committee, the representative of Australia and the representative of Japan, in our view, reinforces the need for the working group to be established, which we are proposing in the Australia and New Zealand resolution on special permits at this session, in order to synthesize some of this extremely complex information we have before us. And I think, the technicality really does reinforce the need for that working group and report for our next Commission meeting. Turning to NUREP-A in particular, New Zealand has made known its deep disappointment with Japan's decision to return to the Southern Ocean to undertake whaling in the 2015-16 season under NUREP-A. In 2014, the International Court of Justice found that Japan's special permits under the Southern Ocean Whaling Programme, JAPA 2, were not for purposes of scientific research and were therefore unlawful. Following this ruling, we had hoped to see a greater degree of cooperation by Japan on its whaling under the Special Permit Programme in the Southern Ocean. Sadly, this has not been the case when it comes to either the review process or the merits of Japan's Southern Ocean Whaling Programme. Today is our opportunity as a Commission to assess NUREP-A in accordance with Resolution 2014-5, which we as a Commission adopted at our last meeting. In operative paragraph 3 of that resolution, it was decided that we, as a Commission, would consider the advice of the Scientific Committee and make such recommendations on the merits or otherwise of a special permit program as we see fit. That is what we are doing today. We have 2 reports from the Scientific Committee and the report of the expert workshop to underpin our assessment. I will first outline our concerns about the process followed for the review of NUREP-A and then its merits. The Commission's process for the consideration of special permit whaling proposals has 3 main steps. First, an initial review by an expert panel. Second, review by the Scientific Committee. And 3, consideration by this Commission. Resolution 2014-5 requests proponents of special permit programs not to proceed to take whales until after the Commission has considered the proposal and made such recommendations on the merits or otherwise of the program as it sees fit. We acknowledge that NUREP-A was referred to the Scientific Committee for review. However, Japan resumed whaling in the Southern Ocean under NUREP-A before the Scientific Committee's review was complete and before this Commission had had a chance to consider the merits of the program. While we recognise that Japan did not support the adoption of Resolution 2014-5, despite extensive efforts on the part of all of us at our last meeting to reach consensus, that resolution was adopted properly by this Commission and is the Commission's process. In deciding to proceed with whaling under NUREP-A before the Scientific Committee had completed its review and before this Commission had had a chance to consider the advice of the Scientific Committee, Japan has in effect chosen to sideline the view of this Commission on an issue that is part of our core business. We reject the argument that it is not the role of this Commission to consider or comment on special permit programs, or that Resolution 2014-5 is contrary to the Whaling Convention. Article 6 of the Whaling Convention provides, the Commission may from time to time make recommendations to any or all contracting governments on any matters which relate to whales or whaling and to the objectives and purposes of this convention. It is important to recall here today that the ICJ made clear in its 2014 judgment that whaling under special permit is not a unilateral matter. It is not up to the proposing state alone to assess the merits of such programs. Moreover, the ICJ judgment said that contracting parties have a duty to cooperate with the Commission. Special permit whaling is squarely this plenary's business. We are deeply disappointed Japan did not afford this Commission the opportunity to consider NUREP-A before it issued new special permits and took 333 minke whales from the Southern Ocean in the 2015-16 southern summer. Turning to the merits of NUREP-A. In early 2015, the IWC expert panel considered NUREP-A and issued very clear and unambiguous recommendations that Japan postpone the lethal components of its research proposal and undertake additional work that the panel believed to be essential prior to a full review of the program being conducted. The panel concluded that NUREP-A proposal did not demonstrate the need for lethal sampling to achieve the stated objectives. At its 2015 meeting, the Scientific Committee was unable to confirm that Japan had done enough to justify the commencement of lethal sampling. A significant number of scientists issued a statement noting that the committee was in the same position as the expert panel. Japan had not demonstrated the need for lethal sampling to achieve its stated research objective. The Scientific Committee again considered NUREP at its meeting in June this year. Once more, there was no consensus that Japan had demonstrated the scientific need for lethal methods to achieve its stated research objectives. On the basis of the information provided to the expert workshop in 2015, the meetings of the Scientific Committee in 2015 and 2016, Japan has still not justified the use of lethal sampling. Simply put, we continue to believe there is no scientific justification for the use of lethal methods under NUREP A. Today is not a relitigation of the science. Our scientists have already looked at NUREP A extensively over the past 18 months. Today is about this Commission looking at the work of the Scientific Committee and making its own assessment of the program at the plenary level. Mr. Chair, we want to make clear 2 points to the Commission today in our assessment of NUREP A. 1. New Zealand remains deeply disappointed that Japan has chosen to disregard the role of the Commission in reviewing special permit proposals. Our strong view remains that contracting governments, as part of their duty to cooperate with the Commission, must afford the Commission the opportunity to consider the advice of the Scientific Committee and to form a view on the merits or otherwise of a special permit program before any special permits are issued. The new resolution before us at this meeting on special permits is intended to make it easier for us, the Commission, to consider the advice of the Scientific Committee so that we can have a more coherent and substantive discussion in this plenary on special permit whaling. 2. On the basis of the information the Commission has before it, it is clear that NUREP A is not, in fact, for purposes of scientific research, as required by Article 8.1 of the Convention. There is no need to use Article 8 of the Convention to obtain the data Japan states it wishes to obtain. We therefore call on Japan to cease the lethal component of NUREP A. In conclusion, we welcome today's opportunity for the Commission to review and assess the merits of NUREP A in accordance with Resolution 2014-5. As part of this Commission's assessment of NUREP A, we suggest that the report of today's meeting include a recommendation which could be as follows. In accordance with Resolution 2014-5 and Article 6 of the International Convention on the Regulation of Whaling, the Commission considered the report of the Scientific Committee on NUREP A. The Commission, 1, noted with concern that Japan issued special permits before the Scientific Committee review process was complete and before the Commission had considered the report of the Scientific Committee on NUREP A. 2, assessed that on the basis of the information before the Commission, Japan has not demonstrated that NUREP A is, for purposes of scientific research, as required by Article 8.1 of the International Convention for the Regulation of Whaling. And 3, recommended that Japan cease the lethal component of NUREP A. And I'm more than happy to provide this language to delegations. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, New Zealand. As I said before, there are the Netherlands, Argentina, and Iceland on the list, and then I drew a line. Now, at the beginning I mentioned there is also an NGO wishing the floor. If I draw a line and there are still parties wishing the floor, and I'm denying them the possibility to express themselves, that means also that I can't give the floor to the NGOs. We heard already some quite lengthy statements, and now I would like to give the floor to the Netherlands. The Netherlands, please.
Thank you, Chair. The Netherlands is speaking on behalf of the EU member states party to the ICRW. We want to thank the Chair of the Scientific Committee for the important work that has been done. we would like to state, we would like to open by reiterating our position. We do not consider there to be a need for lethal research on cetaceans and consider non-lethal means to be equally, if not more, effective. We consider it important to engage in an open dialogue on all matters, whether we agree on an issue or not. This is why we were disappointed that Japan did not allow time for the Commission to receive and consider the reports and recommendations of the Scientific Committee before commencing a new special permit whaling program in the Southern Ocean under Article 8 of the International Convention for the Regulation of Whaling. The International Court of Justice's findings were clear. There are no minimum characteristics that a special permit program should have in order to be considered for the purpose of scientific research. I'm sorry, there are, of course, minimum characteristics. I was saying it wrong. This was enshrined in Resolution 2014-5. Whilst we do not support scientific whaling, we do recognize that it is permissible under the current convention. With this in mind and in respecting Resolution 214-5, we consider it appropriate that this Commission, as the decision-making body, should be given the opportunity to comment on and to react to the advice of its primary and internationally respected scientific body before any proposal for special permit whaling under Article 8 commences. In considering the report of the independent expert panel, which met in Tokyo in February 2015, and the subsequent deliberations by the scientific committee, we are of the opinion that NUREP-A did not demonstrate the need for lethal sampling. We strongly believe that the views of this panel, which had a balance of different views about the efficacy of lethal and non-lethal research, should be respected. We also note that this panel concluded that a short period of 2 or 3 years to carry out further analysis would not have been detrimental to achieving the program's stated objectives. We recognize the efforts of Japan to complete the expert panel's recommended analysis, but note that a subgroup of the scientific committee concluded by consensus in both 2015 and 2016 that the recommendations had not been fully implemented. Despite these conclusions, whaling took place in the 2015-2016 season. In the spirit of a constructive dialogue and enhancing the reputation of the IWC, we would urge Japan to take all possible steps in the future to ensure full involvement of the Scientific Committee and Commission in the process of considering their new scientific whaling program in the North Pacific in 2017. Mr. Chair, we welcome the proposal from New Zealand and Australia for this Commission to draw a clear conclusion on NUREP-A. We fully support the conclusions outlined and welcome their inclusion in the report of this meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, the Netherlands. Now the last two speakers, Argentina, Iceland. And thank you once more to all that can't now take the floor for your understanding. So Argentina now, please.
Muchas gracias, señor presidente. En primer lugar, deseamos agradecer a la presidenta del Comité Científico por las labores realizadas en este tema por ese comité. Luego, nos sumamos a las palabras expresadas por las delegaciones de Australia, Nueva Zelanda y por Países Bajos en nombre de la Unión Europea. En ese sentido, la Argentina desea expresar su profunda preocupación con respecto a la decisión del gobierno del Japón de reanudar la caza de ballenas en el Océano Antártico durante la temporada 2015-2016 en el marco del programa New REPA y de continuar con las actividades de dicho programa. Consideramos que no existe una base científica para incluir métodos letales en el programa New REPA, por lo que instamos al Gobierno del Japón, como miembro de la Comisión Ballenera Internacional, a respetar los procedimientos de la Comisión y el asesoramiento brindado tanto por el Comité Científico como por el panel de expertos. Y lo exhortamos a no emitir permisos especiales bajo el New REPA. Finalmente, reiteramos lo expresado al respecto en diversas declaraciones del Grupo Buenos Aires, como así también en su opening statement a esta reunión plenaria, y reafirmamos el inalterable compromiso de la Argentina con la conservación, la investigación y uso por medios no letales y no extractivos de los cetáceos, el mantenimiento de la moratoria a la caza comercial de ballenas y el respeto a la integridad de los santuarios balleneros reconocidos por la Comisión Ballenera. Muchas gracias.
Thank you, Argentina. And now the last on the list I give the floor is Iceland. And once more I repeat, I apologize for all others wishing the floor that I have to draw a line, but we have still a lot of work in front of us. So please, Iceland now.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Iceland is of the opinion that Japan has responded adequately to the ruling of the International Court of Justice and the recommendations of the expert panel with their new scientific program. The review system of the special permit proposal and special permits results is described in Annex P. As described in Annex P has in general worked well. Iceland sees no need for major revisions of the process itself, or in particular to establish the standing working group. The proposed resolution seems to us to have the main objective to unnecessarily prolong this process. Iceland does not support this resolution as it stands. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Iceland. Now I close the floor for discussion on this agenda item. New Zealand proposed to add a text. I just start as New Zealand provided me the text they were just reading before. And New Zealand asked to include this text in the report in accordance with Resolution 214.5 and Article 6 of the ICRW. The Commission considered the report of the Scientific Committee on Europe A. The Commission, 1, noted with concerns that Japan issued special permits before the Scientific Committee review was complete and before the Commission had considered the report of the Scientific Committee on Europe A. 2, assessed that on the basis of the information before the Commission, Japan has not demonstrated that Europe A is for purposes of scientific research as required by Article 8.1 in the International Convention for the Regulation of Whaling. And 3, recommended that Japan cease the lethal component of Europe A. Now, New Zealand indicated that they would be willing to have some drafting of this text. I will not go into a long discussion. Based on the intervention we heard before, there is still quite a range of views, and they are well apart, each from another. So, in this regard, if this is the text New Zealand is proposing, I'm sure we can include it in the report as expressed view from New Zealand. But please now, Japan.
Mr. Chair, point of clarification, or maybe point of order. This new language, which previously, part of it at least, was included in the previous original resolution proposed by Australia and New Zealand. Does this constitute a new proposal? Or what procedure are we doing now? We will have a resolution addressed probably right after this exchange. And we have some additional proposal to be recorded in the record of this commission. I need a clarification. If that's the case, we will oppose to include those language in the report of a commission. I think this is outside of a procedural custom of this organization. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Payne. That's a good point. And I said before that we have resolution 6.2 that we will discuss a little bit later today, including the different elements. I think there we have this point included. And I see, as you were mentioning, some difficulties or some problems to include this kind of text, as it contains elements of the resolution. So if you agree, I would suggest that we have the discussion in the afternoon regarding resolution 6.2, and the Netherlands may, I apologize, New Zealand may rethink the text, or if they wish to include anything in the report. So this text right now will not be included in the report, and we have a discussion in the afternoon. If this is acceptable for all, then I would like to continue with the agenda item. Chapin, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, of your judgment. I support your judgment as to the handling of 3 points raised by New Zealand delegation. I'd like to ask a question that when we address the resolution, you said this afternoon, do we have another chance to discuss about resolution, or is the current session is a place for us to talk about resolution? Because I'm a little bit confused that some delegations did refer to the resolution and stated their position. And our current session is the only place to talk about resolution itself. We like to speak to the resolution. My previous statement actually avoided to talk about resolution itself because we thought we have another agenda item or session to exclusively talk about the resolution itself. Could I have a clarification, Mr. Chairman?
Thank you, Chapin. It is quite complicated as we have now this agenda item to discuss, but I try to make it clear that we have a resolution and that we will talk about the resolution after agenda item 6. Normally it's me to cut but thank you. No, it's clearly that we will, I just come back to you, New Zealand, it's clearly that we will discuss the resolution in the afternoon probably, or maybe before, after we finished agenda item 16th. And in this regard, I really would like now to move on and to ask New Zealand for understanding that this is not the place. We have the agenda item later where we discuss the resolution. So New Zealand, please.
Thank you very much, Chair, and I agree with your point exactly. This is not the place to talk about the resolution. I just wanted to clarify for the benefit of the plenary that my intervention was about New Rep A and the Commission's assessment of New Rep A in accordance with paragraph 3 of Resolution 2014-5, which said that this Commission would assess whether the proponent of the special program has acted in accordance with the review and that the Commission has made recommendations on the merits or otherwise of the special permit program. So they are two quite distinct processes. Now we're considering NUREP A and making an assessment under Resolution 2014-5 of NUREP A. The resolution we're looking at this afternoon is a separate issue, looking at all special permit programs going forward. Thank you.
That means that you're intending or you're still asking that the text provided will be included?
Yes, Chair, I am requesting that that language be included in the Commission report.
In my understanding, it's still the view of New Zealand expressed with this text. Is this correct? Yeah. So, can we then accept, if it's just expressing the view of New Zealand, this text? If this is acceptable, it's expressing the view of New Zealand. This then ends the discussion on this agenda item. Yeah, sorry, Antigua and Barbuda, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I requested the floor for around 15 minutes now on this issue, and I would have liked, Mr. Chair, for you to pay appropriate attention to state parties that are requesting the floor. Because I find it rather unusual for a member state to be suggesting some controversial text to be part of our report on this particular matter. I agree with your comments, Mr. Chair, that perhaps a text like this that is suggested by New Zealand should be associated with that member state itself. And if that is so, we have to be careful of the precedent setting on this, because Antigua and Barbuda would also like to have a very long and extended text in this report, as is so with other members of developing countries. And if we allow individual states to unilaterally produce texts to be associated with this issue, we will have enormous volumes of opinions. I think, sir, that we should keep our meeting within the same spirit that it has been undertaken for the week, which I commend you and the Secretariat and all of our commissioners here for, and move along with this. New Zealand and Australia have a proposed resolution alluding to the same issue. And I think that in the interest of time, we should ask New Zealand to reconsider its intentions of associating texts which would necessitate extensive debate on this matter, and let us reconsider that text and ask them if they could include it in their proposed resolution rather than at this time on this matter. Thank you.
Thank you, Antigua and Barbuda. I have a long list now. This isn't the idea to have a long discussion on this agenda item, especially on this additional text. Now, the proposed text by New Zealand indicates the Commission, and it is obviously that this isn't the view of the whole Commission. So even if we would have the text as proposed by New Zealand, as long as it stated the Commission and some other remarks reflecting or indicating that the whole Commission is sharing this view, that's not a way forward. So in my view, it would be best if at all New Zealand would like to have some comments included that you prepare or you change the wording of the text you wish to be included, as it isn't representing the view of all, and to come forward a bit later, maybe under agenda item 6.2, that at that stage it could be included as part of the discussion, also on the new resolution, if this is acceptable for you, New Zealand. And then if this is not only acceptable for you, but for all of us, then I really would like to move on with the work we have to do. So New Zealand, please.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you for your patience on this issue. It is an extremely important issue for our delegation, and we appreciate the time you have devoted to this. Yes, New Zealand is happy to work with interested delegations on something that could go into the Commission report. I would just like to note that this is not unilateral. This was clearly a job the Commission gave itself 2 years ago, and we are simply fulfilling the task that we as a Commission set ourselves. So this is a collective responsibility of this Commission to actually make an assessment on this program, and that is all we're trying to do, is carry out a duty that we as a Commission have set ourselves to do 2 years ago. So we'd be more than happy to work with delegations on something that would be acceptable. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, New Zealand. And with this, thank you all. I would like then, I have still some speaker on the list, but in my view, we close this point, and we will have some further discussion then later under agenda item 6.2. And now we move on to 14.2, that's Sharpen 2. Yes, point of order, Antigua and Barbuda, please.
Well, if New Zealand intends to provide text reflecting their view along with others, Antigua and Barbuda would like to avail itself of the opportunity to provide text also on this issue to reflect our views on that matter.
Antigua and Barbuda, it's a point of order, so the discussion isn't going any further. I will not give the floor to anyone else. I'll propose something, and of course, then you can challenge me. It is the right to all members to wish to add some text, and as indicated earlier, as you indicated also, you may wish to add some text in this regard. New Zealand is prepared to come back, maybe with a changed text or just to withdraw, but with a new idea, and offered also to talk to others, to include their views. So this, I understand, would also give the possibility to others like your delegation maybe to talk to them and to find if there is a possibility to have a text that could be added and accepted by all. And with this, I would like to move on, if this is acceptable for you, Antigua and Barbuda.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. That is acceptable. And with the caveat that if the one text is not acceptable to everyone, either we have no text or we have two sides of the opinion.
Thank you for your understanding, and that means I gave you all a little bit more time, and I hope you will use the time and really to go over some texts or ideas, because you have to rethink if some elements or discussions are helpful or aren't helpful for the progress of the work and also for the Commission. So in this regard, once more, thank you for all your understanding. I know it's a sensitive issue, and now I would like to give the floor to the chair of the scientific committee, who was already ready a couple of minutes ago, to report on Sharpen 2. Please.
Thank you, Chair. Concerning the scientific discussions on the final review of JARPAN 2, you can find a summary in IWC 66 17, item 18.2. This followed the 2015 revised version of the Annex P, that again took into account Resolution 2014-5. These changes actually will be discussed in the next agenda item. The JARPAN 2 special permit program was conducted from 2000 to 2016. The final review was called before its real end. So the expert panel and the scientific committee's review of this program under Annex P in 2016, revised Annex P in 2016, was primarily limited to data collected between 2000 and 2013, while preliminary data and analysis from 2014 and 2015 were provided for the scientific committee. The scientific committee recalled his 2015 recommendation and agreement that states that the committee recommends that the JARPAN 2 review by the panel and the committee should focus on a final review of the program in accordance to the revised Annex P. And the committee also agrees that the data for the period up to 2016 shall be available for the review of any new North Pacific proposals submitted by Japan for review in 2017. This year, the committee agreed that the review of any North Pacific proposal will then include this data, 2014 and 2016, that they became available after the review of the panel and review of the scientific committee last summer. And we also, the review of any new proposal will also assess assess the progress against the recommendations which were made by the panel and the scientific committee. The committee conclusions with respect to the terms of reference relevant for the final reviews in Annex P were the following. The committee agreed with the broad conclusion reached by the expert panels. You can find them in our scientific committee report, item 18.211. With respect to the items referenced in Annex P, the committee concurred with the following conclusions of the panel that are summarized as follows. With respect to the program's scientific output, the panel had noted the difficulties associated with the reasons for the timing of the close of the program. In conclusion, it agreed that considerable scientific work has been undertaken. This resulted in a number of peer-review papers and influenced the work of IWC Scientific Committee. However, the committee also noted that much greater emphasis should have been put on improved analysis and modeling. This would have increased considerably the value of the scientific output. We therefore encourage the proponents to follow its recommendations and those of the expert panel, our recommendations and those of the expert panel, and submit further work to peer-review scientific journals. The committee and the panel welcomed much improved collaboration with other research projects compared to that in 2009, which was the mid-term review. Most of that cooperation had included within occurred within the Japanese institute, academic and governmental. But this is perhaps not surprising for the coastal component of the program. But the committee encouraged additional cooperation with scientists from other research projects that address similar issues but in other regions with respect to any further analysis of existing data. Finally, with respect to how the proponents had met their sub-objectives under the main objectives, the committee agreed that the expert panel views and advice, which is summarized in table 24 of our report, are valid. They agreed with those. We agreed with those. And you can see, depending on the subject objectives, you have evaluations which range from partial and progress made to good and very good. And that concludes my summary. Thank you.
Thank you. I open the floor for discussion. Any comments? I see the US, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to the Chair of the Science Committee for that report. Just to note that the United States continues to believe that lethal scientific whale research, although allowed under Article 8 of the ICRW, is unnecessary for modern whale conservation and management. The scientific data needed to improve management and promote recovery of large whale populations can be collected through non-lethal means. For these reasons, the United States voted for an IUCN motion expressing concern about special permit whaling at the 2016 IUCN World Conservation Congress. I note that the Scientific Committee's quote-unquote final review of JARPN 2 was somewhat unusual in that it occurred before formal completion of the program in 2016. Unfortunately, it appears that Japan will begin a new North Pacific Special Permit Whaling program in 2017 before the Commission will have had a chance in 2018 to consider the Scientific Committee's comments on that program. So the timing problem that happened with NUREP A is likely to repeat itself with NUREP NP. In our view, this highlights the need for a mechanism to enable the Commission's timely consideration of Scientific Committee advice on special permit whaling programs. I know that you have said that we will return to agenda item 6.2 and the proposal of Australia and New Zealand with respect to this issue, and the United States looks forward to that discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, US. I have Japan, India, Australia, and Guinea, New Zealand on the list, and then I would like to draw a line. So, Japan next, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I also like to thank the Chair of the Scientific Committee for a succinct and very clear report of outcome of the final review of JARPN 2. We are very grateful that our Scientific Committee has given us a very positive actuary review. I might be repeating the report from the Chair of the Scientific Committee, but please look at the last paragraph of page 28 of document 17. This is a summarization of final review by the Scientific Committee and agreed of the JARPN 2. So the Scientific Committee noted that considerable scientific work has been undertaken by JARPN 2, and the output has been accepted in peer-reviewed journals and has influenced the work of the International Whaling Commission Scientific Committee. Of course, it's not perfect, so they also noted that a much greater emphasis have been given to improve analysis and modeling, which will respond. And that would increase considerably the value of a scientific output of existing data collected. So our committee encouraged the proponents to follow the recommendations provided in the report. We will do that. And that over expert panel, we will do that and submit further work to peer-reviewed scientific journals. We are happy to do this. So as long as the final review of Japan 2 is concerned, it's quite positive. And again, we'd like to thank the scientific committee. One of the subjects of a contention was subject of differences among member countries, the needs of a lethal sampling. And Japan has submitted the new information to the scientific committee, which I'd like to draw your attention. Our scientist has analyzed the contents of a very ending part of a large intestines of minke whales and other whales, and compared that with the stomach contents of the same animal. And of course, the final stage of a large intestine is just before the animal pushes them out as its feces to the environment. And the DNA analysis of both stomach contents and the pre-feces contents in the large intestine did not match. It did not match. It gave a very different view. This means picking up feces from the ocean, chasing around whales will not give you information about stomach contents. This is a very important information for the ecosystem approach or ecosystem modeling. We will continue to provide a scientific evidence, data, to shed the light to the discussion about the need of lethal or non-lethal techniques. But in our view, as long as the use of feces for the stomach contents analysis, it is not the way to do a science, because the DNA analysis of feces or pre-feces and the stomach contents did not match. They give us a very different picture. Finally, the previous speaker touched upon the NUREP NP. We haven't even announced that new name yet formally in this commission. So thank you very much for referring to this one before we do that. In accordance with paragraph 30 of the schedule, as well as revised, improved Annex P, Japan's intention is to submit the draft NUREP NP proposal in time for discussion by the experts as well as the scientific committee of next year. And that will be sometime in the coming months. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Japan. Now I have India. India, please.
Thank you, Chairman. On the scientific permits, India has been of the opinion that refined research methods should be developed to reduce killing of whales for research. While not compromising its stand on moratorium, India is of the view that the countries concerned should issue scientific permits for whaling on minimum needs basis, and that it should be based on comprehensive evaluation of the objective and post-performance appraisal of such permits. As regards to the proposed plan for NUREP A, the request for granting permission for lethal sampling of Antarctic minke whales to estimate age at sexual maturity does not appear to be based on strict scientific merits. Biopsy sampling of minke whales can easily overcome the arguments provided in support of lethal sampling. This is a fairly standard process in citizen biology / genetic research across the globe. Further, a number of recent studies have proved that most of the research goals in this proposal can be accomplished by non-lethal surveys. Sexual maturation can again be studied through reproductive hormones extracted from biopsy samples or feces from genetically identified and age-determined individuals. All of these objectives can be also validated through captive animals rather killing their wild counterparts. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, India. I have Australia, Guinea, New Zealand, and I would then like to draw a line. So, Australia, please.
Thank you, Chair, and I'll add my thanks to Katarina for the review summary and also again to the Scientific Committee for their work. I note that this is a final review for a large program that's taken many whales under Article 8, so it is important to make some comment and record them in the meeting's record. Japan 2, in fact, had a mid-term review in 2009, where an expert panel noted that it had not been able to complete its review and would not be able to do so until a number of its recommendations had been addressed. These revolved around two broad issues. One was sample size and sampling design, including clearly stated quantitative objectives and quantitative information on both lethal and non-lethal techniques, and, very importantly for this Commission, the effects of catches on stocks of common North Pacific minke whales and sei whales. The mid-term review was never completed because this information sought by the panel was not provided. This year, a final review of Japan 2 under Annex P was undertaken, despite whales still being taken during and after the review. Japan 2 was terminated prematurely for what the expert panel described as political reasons. Despite 13 years of sampling under Japan 2, the expert panel concluded that 2 of the 3 objectives were not met. The objective that was met related to genetic analyses to examine stock structure, and we know this could have easily been conducted non-lethally as it is throughout the globe. The panel was critical of those components dependent on lethal sampling because of the lack of progress against the stated objectives. For example, in relation to the objective to establish ecosystem models, the panel found that the modelling results are not suitable for addressing strategic management questions, and the results have not led to improved conservation and management of cetaceans or other marine living resources or the ecosystem. Following the judgment of the International Court of Justice in whaling in the Antarctic in March 2014, Japan reduced the number of whales killed in Japan 2. However, the expert panel and the Scientific Committee recognised that the scientific justification for amending sample sizes was weak. The panel recommended that a single document be provided to the 2016 annual meeting of the Scientific Committee to provide a clearer rationale for these changes in sample size and any implications for meeting the original objectives of the programme. Japan did not provide information as required, as recommended by the expert panel, justifying those changes. The final review of Japan 2 has shown that it had flaws similar to other special permit programs, particularly in relation to justifying sample sizes, thus casting doubt on the program being for the purposes of scientific research. As noted by the US, we understand Japan is proposing to submit a new proposal for Article 8 whaling in the North Pacific. I won't propose a name at this stage. I reflect that there were many serious concerns that in the past final reviews of programs, such as the first Japan, as well as JAPA and JAPA 2, those recommendations have not flowed in and informed new research programs. In every case, the programs continued to be designed around a core of a certain number of whales that needed to be killed to support various objectives. We sincerely hope for a different approach in Japan's next proposal. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Australia. The last two speakers, Guinea and New Zealand. And once more, I apologize for all. I can't give the floor because we have still many items to discuss. So thank you. Guinea first and then New Zealand. So Guinea, please.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Encore merci pour l'invitation d'hier. Monsieur le Président, nous remercions la présidente du comité scientifique et nous apprécions hautement les conclusions tirées sur le programme JARPA 2. Car si la recherche non létale permet, entre autres, de récolter des informations sur l'abondance des ressources, à savoir l'estimation de la population par observation visuelle, la distribution des stocks, les effets de la ressource par la variation environnementale des eaux de l'habitat, la simulation de variation des ressources à l'aide des modèles écosystémiques. La recherche létale permet, entre autres, de connaître la structure des stocks, la distribution des stocks par l'analyse génétique d'échantillons de tissus et l'écologie de l'alimentation, le contenu de l'estomac. Nous avons, à des occasions antérieures, apprécié hautement les résultats présentés par le programme JARPA 2 qui font ressortir la relation entre poissons et espèces baleines. Je dois rappeler ici que la pêche est pratiquée dans nos pays en majorité par des pêcheurs artisans. Ces pêcheurs artisans pêchent les poissons pélagiques. Et les poissons pélagiques couvrent plus de 65% des besoins en protéines marines de nos populations. Donc c'est pour ça que toutes les recherches, tous les programmes visant à faire ressortir la nécessité de garder un équilibre entre espèces baleines et espèces poissons pélagiques sont d'un grand intérêt pour nous. C'est pour ça que nous apprécions ce programme JARPA 2. Je vous remercie.
Thank you, Guinea. And last now, New Zealand, please.
Thank you very much, Chair, and I'd just like to thank the Chair of the Scientific Committee for her report on the review of Japan's North Pacific Whaling Program, JAPAN 2. We understand that Japan stopped whaling under JAPAN 2 this year, but we do concur with the comments of those who have already spoken this morning, noting the reasons why the final review of JAPAN 2 was not actually final, in that the last few years of data still have to be reviewed by the Scientific Committee. Having considered the information already before the Commission, we think there is considerable doubt on whether JAPAN 2 was in fact for purposes of scientific research as required by Article 8 of the Convention. Again, lethal sampling has not been justified, and the data can be obtained through non-lethal research. We look forward to further consideration of JAPAN 2 by the Commission, and note Japan has said that new information will be provided. As with others, we understand Japan will shortly be presenting a North Pacific whaling program for review by the committee. In line with the Commission's request under Resolution 2014-5, New Zealand calls on Japan to refrain from issuing any special permits under NUREP NP, which is what we believe it will be called, until the program has been reviewed by the Scientific Committee and the Commission has considered the report of the committee and made such recommendations on the merits or otherwise of the program as it sees fit. Thank you.
Thank you, New Zealand. Now we will break for coffee. I ask you to be back at 11. Thank you.